Social media did go wrong a little bit for any lab test now. Say a little bit, maybe a lot.
Yeah.
And she's been so gracious to share their crisis with us and let us know what happened and what she's done to So thank you very much, and I will give the podium to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Deb. Yes, I wanted to share a little bit of my story. It's going to be a little bit funny. We're going to try to make it a little bit light, just because if it weren't funny, I think we'd be crying, right? But let me tell you a little bit about Any Lab Test Now as far as our social media plan. We do have our Vice President of Sales and Marketing, Terry McCullough, is a real advocate of social media. She came on board and really got us all energized and getting out there and becoming more social. We actually have a program with our franchisees that we can do the templates for their Facebook pages and so forth. We do allow our franchisees to have their own Facebook pages, their own Twitter accounts, that kind of thing, just to give you a little bit of a background. So then I started, of course, being the team player and thinking it's a lot of fun, because it is a lot of fun to be into social media, got involved with social media. So here is my story. Let's give a little bit of background. I think we know, actually the third one down there is LinkedIn. I think we know all of the stats. There's just, bottom line is, there's a lot of social media going out there. You all are encouraging even more, which is fantastic. So that's all the good news. Then I wanted to share something that's a little bit outside of social media, but I think it's a good perception of what is reality and what is not reality. And this is in regards to Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein meeting with some journalism students from Yale, and asking how would you go about researching and finding out, getting the next big story. And their response is, of course, I'd Google it. Now, just imagine if Bernstein and Woodward had just tried to Google break-in tapes, right? So, people are looking at the internet and everything is Googling and trying to find out, but of course, some of the facts aren't there, right? You've got to go out and find them, and some of them just simply aren't true. Okay, and then we have a few things like the Pew Internet and American Life Project. People are more likely to search for social networking sites and information on someone's professional accomplishments. How many of you, whenever you hire a new employee, one of the first things you do when you get down to the top 5 candidates, go and check them out on the social media platforms, right? Okay, so think of that, keep that in mind as you look and listen to my story, right? The other thing is, people think that their online identity, of course, is of more importance, many people, than their real identity, their professional identity out networking. So that's kind of an interesting perspective. And then, of course, we have, how many of you, I have to admit, I'm guilty of this. I don't buy any of the tabloids, but when I'm checking out at the grocery store, I always read it, right? I mean, you kind of look at the cover. And what are you attracted to, or at least I am? Most people, and it must be more than just me, tend to be attracted to the stuff that's all gossipy, right? The negative stuff. Well, that's human nature. We tend to remember the negative over the positive, right? Okay. Now let's talk about the difference between, and I learned so much going through this process. I feel like I can get a law degree now in intellectual property law and identity theft and all kinds of things. I'm just kidding. There's a difference between cyberbullying, cyber harassment, and cyber stalking. Have any of you ever been either one of any of those things, or know someone, your child or whatever, that has been cyberbullied, stalked, or harassed? The difference is that cyberbullying is for adolescents. That's the way it's defined. That's the way when you talk to law enforcement, it's very clear that it's cyberbullying, cyber harassment, and the cyber stalking. Cyberbullying, of course, is prevalent. I think we've all heard some of the tragic stories of kids committing suicide because people have hijacked their Facebook page, have put a fake Facebook page up. I know personally my daughter, who's now 20, went through a cyberbullying incident which was related to her cell phone, and the poor child now still will not listen to voicemails because she got over 20 voicemails of harassing, so forth. So she's now, 7 years later, dealing with that. So it's really out there. If you have children, please, 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 of course, be engaged, because it's devastating. And many times the children will not tell their parents or any adult figures what's really going on. So. Now, cyber harassment, again, that's with adults. Now, the point with cyber harassment, the one thing I want to point out here, this is, I think I got this from Wikipedia or whatever, and if you'll notice the way they describe cyber harassment, it's focused on instant messages, blog entries, I guess that's the closest, right? That's social media, but you don't see Twitter, you don't see Facebook, right? Even the way it's defined, everything in regards to working with the police, working with the attorneys on this, social media, this is all new. You know, they can't really figure out what is cyber harassment in regards to social media and the form that it takes. And then you have cyber stalking. Now, cyber stalking is where someone is tracking you down and stalking you and harassing you basically by trying to find out where you are. All of this is against the law, by the way, of course. You can go to your authorities. We're going to talk about that in the end on what to do. So that's kind of a little summary. Any questions about the differences between cyber harassment, bullying, or stalking? Okay. Okay, now let's get to the real fun stuff. I'll give you a little bit of background. It started, it was the 2010, the Sunday. Actually, it started a little bit before that, and I didn't go in. I have hundreds and hundreds of examples of some of the abuse. But the first key that I got that something was going amiss is that I posted on a jobs forum, not a jobs forum, it was a thing about how to hire right or how to screen the right applicants. And I just posted something that was innocuous, you know, it's always good to look for XYZ, to go on the social media, I can't remember. And the perpetrator posted a comment on that was negative toward me and toward our brand. And that was in around mid-November. Very disconcerting, however, I just thought, well, maybe that was a one-off situation. Well, then the Sunday night after Thanksgiving, I've had a great holiday with my family, and then all of a sudden I notice that there is another Facebook page with my name, sort of, maybe close, right? And I am just going, what the heck is going on, right? And so if you'll notice, one of the things here, my name is Clarissa Wyndham-Bradsto, but if you'll notice the second listing there, Clarissa Bradstock Wyndham. And now this is really a little bit misleading because the actual screenshot I took here, within an hour or so, he was actually scraping my Facebook page, so that it would change the picture. I thought I could outsmart him and that I would keep changing the picture. Now, keep in mind, I made it private and I excluded this person off, but he was able to go in, scrape the picture, and change it. So no one could really identify, is this the real Clarissa or is this the fake Clarissa? So that was just a very, very challenging thing. But, and by the way, the dog there, she makes my kids look good. That's a joke. Okay. All right, then, now a couple of things. You have to keep in mind that, you know, pictures of children, it is real important. People cannot take the pictures of your children and just publicize those and republicize those. That is a very serious issue. Now, you can see here that he put the list of my children, didn't quite get all their names right, because he tried his best he could, but didn't quite get it. But put the names of our children, also put our physical address, my home, posted that on Facebook, and of course I don't have my physical address on my real Facebook. And then there were just certain references. He was scraping all of the data I had, so the feed looked very similar to my real Facebook page, okay? Now, to make things even funner, he would then go in under this, and he would friend our franchisees. And the franchisees say, hey, Clarissa wants to friend me on Facebook. That sounds great. Okay, she's sending me a new invite. So then they became the friends, and then there was a real issue. What was happening is he was then using this fake Facebook page to then launch attacks against me, and even sometimes against our franchisees via this channel. So I would get, and I didn't I could have gone on, we could spend all day, and you'd certainly be bored by that with all the examples. But there would be things where he would say harassing things to some of the franchisees that he did not get along with, and it looked as if it came from me. Mm-hmm.
What was the motivation? So, why did this happen?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I have to have a caveat. and that I do have some evidence of who was the instigator on this, but I don't. No, I know who it is. I mean, I know who it is, but I'm just giving a legal caveat so that you have to think of the litigious aspects of then claiming. In this particular situation, it was a franchisee who was a vendor of ours, and then we had opted not to continue with his services, and at that point, he became hostile. And then also, he then now is part of a legal arbitration with us in regards to making false claims against us. Absolutely, yep. And of course, lessons learned through all of that experience. And very, very clever with technology, and really tried to launch this as a way of really, really hurting our brand, as well as really trying to defeat us from a personal and professional level, trying to impact us. To basically, I look at it as cyber terrorism, quite frankly. And there is things, when you look at tortious interference, things that from our attorney's view certainly has merit. So, but that's a long road to go down. So yeah, that's the motivation behind it. So anyway, then posting to our franchisees. And then if you look at some of the comments here, I think it's I'm proud to be a member of the Any Lab Test Now corporate team. We strive to hide closed locations and misrepresentations. Life is great with my husband. He mentions my husband, who, by the way, is very, very prevalent in social media. He's had over a couple of million hits on his YouTube channel. He has 5,000 Facebook friends, doesn't tweet, but he's got a pretty big presence. And he's an artist, he's an Olympian. That's part of his brand. And so, of course, there was the concern, of course, with him trying to then migrate into cyber harassment of my husband, which I think was going down that channel when it's finally stopped. So, and then I'm loving every minute with Joe Neely as the COO. Joe is our CEO. I can assure you it is strictly a professional relationship, but throughout the cyberbullying, he implies certain things that are, of course, not true. So, then we get, again, pictures of the children. This is the fake Facebook page, okay? This is not the real Facebook page. And it looks so similar, again, you can't really tell. Now, maybe you think, well, why don't you just turn your Facebook page off altogether? Well, then I'm leaving my whole presence on the web to this person, right? And I was not willing to do that. I am not willing to, you cannot give in to terrorism, quite frankly, and being a hostage to this type of thing. So anyway, now what was really interesting is that in this particular one, to make things even a little bit more challenging, he bought a URL in my name, also bought one for our CEO, is Joe Neely Socks. I didn't get the Clarissa Bradstock socks, so I just got the clarissabradstock.com. But anyway, he then says that people should email me at clarissabradstock@clarissabradstock.com. So then trying to encourage people to engage with him as if he is me, right? Okay, to make things even worse. And of course, that is what ties this individual back to this webpage, right? From illegal, trying to find out where's the connection, because otherwise, how can you then trace it back? That's one of the biggest challenges with cyber harassment. How do you go to the police and say, I know it's this person? You have to go back and look at their IP addresses and all that kind of stuff, and you have to have a court order, and it gets all very, very ugly. So, all right, now this, this was interesting. This is the the second Facebook web page he put up. So just as I'm trying to track one Facebook, he then puts up another one, and I don't know who that woman is. But anyway, that was kind of interesting. He just scraped any face from that. And then he does have a picture of my husband there with some other Olympians or whatever, and then, of course, a picture of myself. This one had just started when, luckily, I was able to get a two-stop. So, oops. Okay. Now, it wasn't just Facebook. It was also Twitter. Here is my fake Twitter. So I felt like I was living in a world who was the real me and who was the alter me, right? So this was the first tweet that went out, and again, it's Bradstock C, just to confuse things. And again, this is the whole thing with the line. But these tweets went out. And he, luckily, my alter ego didn't get any followers, hardly, maybe 2 or 3. So, but still, as you can imagine, the distraction of having to keep up with all of this so that you can then negate that kind of information going out. You have to know of it so that when my franchisees would come to me and say, what is this all about? You can't just have your head in the sand. You have to know, what's being said out there. So it was quite a job monitoring. And there were typically 2 to 3 different posts a day, to keep up with all through the day. So just to kind of monitor that, and of course, then one of the things I'm going to tell you about is how to log all of it and so forth. And then again, a reference to my husband, and then of course a reference to one of the people that obviously seems to be engaged in some of this process. But yeah, the reference to my husband again, which to me is kind of a little bit of a threat, from the way I interpreted that. And then, now this is the interesting thing with cyber stalking. I was with Terry, we were having dinner somewhere, and Terry tweeted, or did her Foursquare, I'm with, Clarissa at the Atlantic Seafood. Well, literally 2 seconds later, this is what he tweeted while we were still there. Tell Terry I said hi. I mean, that's kind of tracking. So at that point, I told my team, and I actually have stopped doing Foursquare just because of this particular concern. If you have someone who is keeping up with where you are physically, that could put you at risk. So I had to tell my team, don't ever mention me, any of your tweets as far as where my location is. Not that someone couldn't find me, but I just don't want to, be stalked in that degree. So that was quite disconcerting. Now then we go into a LinkedIn. So then he started a LinkedIn profile. Now you probably are thinking, where did the guy find the time? Well, evidently, he took it. He was probably spending, I would think, probably about 4 hours a day, or he engaged other people to do this just in the background. So he spent a lot of time. I know I spent probably 4 hours a day tracking it. Very good question. Actually, I found it luckily within an hour of him posting it, because he posted on one of my employee sites as that, and she's like, what do you do? What is this all about? And immediately, so he was not trying to hide it. He was getting it out there, making it known that, you're a target now. So, but I'll tell you some things that what you want to do to just make sure that you're, of course, checking to make sure that you aren't being cyber harassed and not even know it. But part of the thing with harassment, right, is making sure your victims know it, right? So anyway, you can see he put another LinkedIn profile. Again, he scraped the pictures, so I thought I was clever in changing the picture so that I could try to identify, to show people this is the real me, and that lasted about 10 minutes before it would be back to whatever I had just posted. So that was a futile attempt at trying to distinguish the two. All right, then there were some discussion groups that were started by this person, and then the fake profile then posted on the discussion group, right? So as you can imagine, the confusion that would create with our brand and with our franchisees. And it's the same thing. A little bit of a threat. If you find about my emails, please delete them, all this stuff, which of course is implying that there are emails out there that would be at risk for us. And then something about handing it over as evidence, and David is referring to our primary shareholder, who is quite former. Well, he actually still works with Hooters as one of the first licensees and has, the Hooters casino and so forth. So a veiled kind of threat at him, but I can assure you that doesn't go over very well. The other thing is there were threats. I did not put the example up saying things like, Raul, that's my husband's name, I'm so sorry to have done this to you. I hope we can make it through this challenge, all that kind of stuff, actually, bringing my marriage and almost making it sound like we're having issues over this. Then, again, there was another forum that was started, and this was a forum that was started as a user forum, franchisee forum by this person, and then they posted things under my name on the forum. So I'll show you some examples of that. This was the forum, the Any Lab Test Now Cafe forum or whatever, that was supposed to, this was sent to all of the franchisees to get them engaged in some level of this process. And this was one of the posts that was not made by me. There were others that were, none of them were made by me, but that used my Bradsto, right? And you'll see some other examples of this. And then this was a threat that we received the week before our Christmas little social gathering with our employees. We had to cancel that because there were threats of coming in with bombs, that kind of thing. So, you know, that gets into where it's real scary. So when this particular thing happened, I did go to the police with this particular situation because this was a threat. And went to, what I learned is you go to, of course, the police department in your local, at your home address. You have to go to your local police department there because that's the way cyber works. You're still based out of where your physical address is of your home. And put in a police report, and they pretty much looked at me and went, you know, what can we do? Have you seen anybody? Have they done anything? I said, no, but this looks kind of scary to us. I have employees who are really, really quite frightened at this point. So luckily nothing happened, but nothing happened with the police. There's really not that much they could do until we actually physically were threatened.
How often did you get instructions to report everything that happened or just something like that?
I didn't get instructions to do anything. I had to figure it all out on my own. So, and I'll go back to a little bit about what I did when we get finished, show all the examples of how I went through. Then from a really trying to affect our brand, keeping in mind the goal was to kind of break me down personally as well as affect our brand. So then they put on a posting on Ripoff Report, on Scam.com, and some of these, if you'll notice, this is reported by CWB implying it's me, right? I did not do any postings, obviously, on Scam.com or Ripoff. This is the one that's Scam.com, and again, it's posted with my name as if I'm saying this. So it is quite disturbing when you start seeing all this stuff out there. And again, from the franchisee's perspective, it was a challenge for me because how much do you know, some of our franchisees aren't even doing social media or are not aware of any of this going on. So you don't send out a blast going, hey, if the fake Clarissa emails you, disregard it, because what the heck is going on? So you really just have to be reactive. And when the franchisees would write me and say, Clarissa, why are you writing me an email? Why did you post this on my Facebook? Then I have to take it offline. You don't want to do anything public because that only, you know, when you're working with a harasser or a stalker, the more you engage, the more they will continue to do it, so you don't give them fodder. So I'd have to take it offline, email them, tell them the situation, which obviously is very distracting for us and for the franchisees. We're trying to build a business, growing our brand. Our franchisees are having great success, and this is just a nuisance, really. So that was probably the most discouraging thing about it. Now, so what did I do? Now, you guys are going to find this really funny. It is literally Christmas Eve. I am beside myself trying to solve this problem. Keep in mind it started, so it's going on about 3 or 4 weeks. I did at that point everything that they say online. Now the problem with social media, as far as the channels that you're working with, there is no way to 1-800 I'm being harassed call, okay? So how do you find out how to stop this? Well, you have to dig around. You have to look at the terms of use, you have to see what to do, and then you send an email basically saying, I'm being cyber harassed to whatever you know, Facebook support. Not a real efficient way of taking care of it. And then what I also learned, and I'll go over this in a little bit more detail in a minute, you also have to send, get this, a picture of yourself with it so that they can see, and your handle, what your actual IP address, your number is on Facebook. You have to send that with your number that this is really me and here's my number, which the other person can't get, right? And say, this is me, please take the other one down. I'm not sure that had much effect. So what did I do on Christmas Eve? I am writing, I said, you know what, I'm going to turn social media. I've tried to do this in a way that is following the rules, right? Sending in these emails. I did it literally within a day of finding this all out. I started sending the emails in to no avail. No one contacted me. So I said, you know what, this just can't keep going on. So I decided to post on Mark Zuckerberg's discussion board. And what was really sad about that is I posted, help me out. I'm being harassed. I can't tell you how many people wrote me after this to say, I am too. What do I do? But literally within 10 minutes, he posted, she's not the real one, I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I'm a loser for doing this on Christmas Eve, but what about you? Anyway, it was just absolutely bizarre. Now, the other thing I did is I started doing some research on what was Facebook doing in regards to cyber harassment, and found out that they have a cyber team of about 10 individuals who are out there really for more serious things like, Homeland Security type stuff, right? But I thought, what the heck? I found the Facebook pages of the few of them and actually sent them didn't post on their page, sent them direct email saying, please help me. I don't know where else to go. I wrote about 4 of them. No one responded. Mark Zuckerberg did not respond to my post, but I will say that within about a week, the Facebook pages were down, okay?
They got it right.
Pardon me?
They pulled down the right.
Yeah, they pulled down the right one. Yep. And that's easy to see. If they go back and look at how long has my Facebook page been and how long is this one, I mean, it takes 2 seconds to find that out and say, squash this one. Now, what they do have is the terms of use is if someone does do stuff like that, they can ban the person who's doing it. But how do they know who the person's doing it? It's just, it's really tough. Then with LinkedIn, same kind of thing. I sent emails, did your standard, FYI support, please help me. That was not working again. LinkedIn was probably my biggest concern because that is that's my professional presence. So I went through, again, I said, I gotta go to the top. Went in and looked through LinkedIn for the LinkedIn executives and got the closest I could find, who I think was the VP of Business Development for LinkedIn, and wrote him a long email telling him that if they can't control stuff like this, it really puts the whole system really at risk because it just starts to be haywire. Within a day or two, my LinkedIn profile was down. No response from anyone, but it was down. So again, I think the message here is you have to take matters in your own hand and use, the tools that you use to maybe network as a business to make this stop. So Twitter, same kind of thing. I had to write. Twitter was actually a little bit quicker than everybody. But again, I never once talked to anybody. Nobody called me, no one from support, and I'm telling you, it wears you down. It is an emotional, you're like, please, someone help me. You feel like you're on an island. You're learning this all out on your own, so that's why I'm here today. Now, first things, what happens if this does go wrong? It does happen to you. Again, my advice is don't ever engage with the perpetrator. You cannot win. They'll take whatever you say and twist it around, and it only continues fodder, plus it validates their actions. So just do not engage with the perpetrator. Go in and check your profiles. I go in and check social mention, every day, especially when you're going through this. I would just say, just check it. If you don't think you're being harassed or don't have any need to worry, just once a week or whatever, but see what's going on out there and look for different variations of your name. Then check all the social media platforms. Again, this is if you think it's happening to you. You want to check and see if there are any other names coming up, that kind of thing. The other thing is archive every example, which I'm telling you is really, really tedious when someone's posting 2 or 3 times a day on your fake Facebook. But I archived, did a screenshot of every single one, archived them, and it's about this much information that, from a legal standpoint, wanted to have evidence of what was happening. Always check to see if anybody's registered your name as a domain, okay? or any variation of your brand, right? Any lab test now sucks, or do not buy, or whatever, all of those kind of things you just want to check to make sure that your brand is being protected, okay? This is what I was mentioning here on the last one. This is where you notify the channel based on the social media plans that they have, using social media to get the message out. All right, now file a report with your local police department. Now, bring the documentation with you, and most local, well, at least luckily in Cobb County, Georgia, which is a suburb here of Atlanta, they have a cyber crimes unit. Some smaller cities may not have that, but definitely go in, and you want to get to that instead of just a standard detective, you want it escalated to the cyber crimes unit. Now, I approached the detective, and I tell you, by the time I found someone who could listen and understand, and I just wanted to cry. It's like somebody finally kind of gets it. And Detective Maldonado from the Cobb County Police Department said, this is happening. I get these calls all the time now. It could be divorce cases and one of the spouses. It could be business associates. He goes, this is a real problem. Now, right at the time that I finally got the attention of the right person at the police department, it stopped, okay? So he and I decided that you really wanted to show a pattern and so forth. He said, I tell you what, we agreed, and quite frankly, I was emotionally done with it. If it stopped, I just wanted to let it go. But he said, if he starts again, please call me immediately, and then we'll start to investigate all of it, because right now we need to show a pattern. If he's just stopped, it'll be hard for me to get my superiors to sign off that this is something we're going to focus on, okay? That was just my particular situation. Now, I also, with your perpetrator, if you know who it is, I would suggest filing a restraining order, because you just never know when people cross the line, right, and end up on your front door when it goes from just cyber to physical being there. Now, what I learned I've never had to do any of this. I've never had to file a restraining order in my life. And the thing with the restraining order, for those of you who don't know, it doesn't mean that they can't come on your, the real reason that you get a restraining order is that if the perpetrator came to my front door and knocked on the door and I didn't have a restraining order, I'd call the police and they'd say, so what? He has a right to knock on your door. That's not against the law. If I have a restraining order, they can come out immediately, say there's a restraining order against you, and he'd go in jail. Okay? So that's the key why it's important to get a restraining order, just because if hopefully low possibility, but if he does show up, you don't have to explain to anybody, and you can get him off your property, and you can, or wherever if he's stalking you, that kind of thing. So, I did file a case with the FBI. The FBI referred it back to the local police, but I would suggest at least getting it on record, with the FBI. And there are times with cyber stalking, depending on the nature of the cyber stalking, harassment, whatever, it could go to a federal level. So, just it's worth, 30 minutes to go to your local division of the FBI and file a report. By the way, it's not like it is on TV. It's a big plexiglass thing, and you put your report under. You can't get to them, so it's kind of all very interesting experience. Now, what about those reputation management solutions out there, right? Okay, this was probably one of the most discouraging things about this whole experience. What I learned is that, let me talk about the scam.com posting. Well, first of all, reputation management, unless they've changed recently, they really can't help you with the reputation on Facebook and all of that. I mean, the cyber harassment's a whole different animal. They're focusing on negative content that's out on the web, which is like what we had with the scam.com and the ripoff report, right? And so what they will do is they're basically SEOing that content down, right, to the second or third page, so that even if it comes up, people aren't going to hopefully find it. Well, that costs about $10,000 a month, guys. Now you could, of course, maybe hire someone to SEO to get it down. But then here's the challenge with scam.com. I thought this was very interesting. I was contacted by someone who said, oh, I noticed that you guys had a posting on scam.com. Our attorneys can work with their attorneys to take that down for you. I'm like, okay, great, please get it down. It's not true. Now, that would cost you $12,000, $8,000. I think it got down to $6,000. I kept saying, we don't, what? And then it just, it infuriated. And here's the reason that they said. Scam.com, which, by the way, is out of Eastern Europe, okay, is they make money off the clicks that they get, right? From the links from how many people go on to see about any lab tests. Now, please, y'all, don't click on this thing and get the SEO up on it. Please don't do that. Anyway, so they look at the value of what revenue you bring to them, supposedly, and that's why they can justify that it costs money to take it down, and the legal fees with it. By the way, the addresses of the organizations are very similar. Isn't that kind of interesting? So I kind of would think of it maybe or as extortion. Obviously, we did not play the extortion game. Who's to say you pay to get it down and there's another one up? Because, boy, we're easy fodder, right? At that point. So it's not true. So we did not do anything, but I thought the reputation management companies, I did engage with reputation management. Again, that ended up being a quote of around $10,000 a month. And all that was SEO. And it would take about 3 months to get the content pushed. Well, I tell you, we have enough press out there. We don't have any problem with pushing content down. We have news reports, articles, NPR focused on us. We've been on, the national coverage and so forth. So it's just like, no, that's not the way we're going to deal with it. So very, very discouraged with the reputation management folks. Now, what are your legal options? You have to look at the state laws, and I've got some links here that will tell you by state what the laws are for cyber harassment, cyber stalking, and cyberbullying. So you have to go in and look at those particular things relevant to your state to see what the laws are. And, whoops, wait a minute. Let's see. Now, one interesting thing, one thing that's a twist on this is identity theft, and I really haven't focused that much on it. But in doing all of my research, what came the closest to what my experience was this case here. I've got the link, and it's called the Dead Sea Scrolls cyberbullying, even though technically it was cyber harassment. It was a situation where, let me think if I get it right, a son of a professor. They had two academics that studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? So one gentleman was published, won awards and so forth. Then there was another gentleman who was a peer to him, and the son of this gentleman over here took the name of this academic and posted things on blogs and so forth as if it was this academic, right? He is in jail, okay? That went to court. And it was a very, very ugly situation. This was back in 2010, toward the end of 2010. And I can't remember how long he was sentenced to be in jail, but he did serve or is still serving time for that. And that was under really more of an identity theft, not under cyber harassment, but it was identity theft. And that was not a civil case. I mean, obviously he went to jail. Now, I don't know, there may be a civil case following this because it hurt the academic's career. And really, really, challenge his career. One of the things that you may ask me is, well, why don't you sue if you think you know who it is? And I can assure you that certainly is something that I am considering. We will see, because I can, again, tie it back to the perpetrator. But of course, for those of you who have any experience with these kind of things, you have to show damages and all kinds of stuff. So we shall see, but it's certainly, I have up to 2 years to make that decision, so I am still contemplating that. And also, all of this content, because it is tortious interference, to some degree, our lawyers are taking it very seriously in regards to some of the arbitrations and so forth that we have. Because our contention was all of this was to affect our brand so that they could reduce our franchise sales and have a huge impact on our brand. I'm very thankful and proud of every member of our franchise system and that we are still rocking and rolling and doing great. So, at the end of the day, the terrorists did not win. They will not win. But it's a scary thing to go through, I can tell you. Now, do I still do social media? Absolutely. I have a blog. don't post as much as I should. Facebook, Twitter, I don't do Foursquare anymore. But I do, I am engaged. I have to tell you, not as engaged as I used to be. It's kind of like you're a little bit shell-shocked after a while. And one of the things I told Deb when we, were getting ready for this, I said, you know what, I'm not going to tweet that I'm doing this, just because the last thing I wanted to do is before the conference have negative stuff out here about FranCamp, because that could have been a potential, and, that's not worth the risk. So to some degrees, it has had an impact. You just have to be judicious and fight your battles. So that's my story of media gone wrong. Any questions? Mm-hmm.
Just for context, the general time frame.
Oh, very good. It started on, the question was, what was the time frame? It started on mid-November, the very first posting, and it ended around mid to late January. So it was only 2.5 months before I could get it all down. Yeah, mm-hmm. But it was a pretty trying 2 months, as you can imagine, with that much content going out every day under my name. So, yes?
Did you get advice to pursue cyber harassment versus identity theft charges, or?
He focused on primarily when I talked to the detective, he really focused more on the cyber harassment. Now, he did say we would weave in, if it comes to that, the identity theft. So yeah, but we never really took it that far at this point, but of course I am, if it does start again. Mm-hmm.
Possibly,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this was an ex-franchisee, right?
Mm-hmm.
What, if anything, could you have identified in the beginning where you could have headed this all off? During either the recruitment process or just something along the way? Is there anything you could have done early on when you look back on it?
Anything crazy?
Yeah, it's one of those things that hindsight is always 20/20, but up until that point, and we've changed.
Anything you might have stepped over?
Yeah, he was doing things like emailing franchisees with negative stuff. That was during all of this time. He was also directly emailing franchisees as himself. But I never knew it would go. This was stunning.
How about in the recruitment process? Did you see anything?
No. I sometimes you just don't. People, just I think go to the irrational level, and I don't think that we had any indication he would be. Mm-hmm. No, I never, we really, now that it's all down and everything, and even when it was up, I had to put it in perspective that for me, it was very disturbing. For my staff, it was disturbing. For our system, the franchisees, it was only a small pool of them that were affected. I mean, he went after them. I didn't show one case. We have a gentleman who's a state representative in Tennessee, and he posted on my Facebook, my fake Facebook, negative stuff about this franchisee. I mean, that's how, but for the general population of prospective franchisees, in regards to the social media piece, in regards to my Facebook and so forth, they didn't really recognize. Now, in regards to the rip-off reports and so forth, yes, that did have an impact, and our system is strong enough that we were able to work through with some folks, but we did lose some prospective franchises because of this. Yep. And all we could do is encourage them to talk to existing franchisees and try to explain the situation, but. All right, any other questions? Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys listening to me, and keep having fun out there with social media. Just be sure to just sometimes check your back. Okay? All right, thanks a lot, guys. You guys have a great day.